Surely you've watched at least one science fiction or fantasy film where the main characters travel into the underworld. But it's all fiction. How are things in reality? What is deep underground? What are scientists going to find out about the lower layers of our planet? Does the name Kola Well mean anything to you? What is it? And why are some people still convinced that this is not a well, but an entrance to the house where the devil lives? You might think that people started drilling wells and boreholes only in the last century, but in fact this isn't so. The first wells were dug between 7 and 10,000 years ago during the Neolithic era, and the first coal mines were dug between 20 and 40,000 years ago in Africa. Wells, pits, mines, and boreholes often contain many unknown and mysterious things. Every year, scientists find something amazing in one of them. For example, quite recently, Russian, French, and German researchers, when drilling a deep hole, found an ocean underground that existed during the Archean period. Its depth is about 500 kilometers, and in terms of volume, it was larger than all the oceans on our planet combined. So, scientists learn more precisely how the Earth was formed, and that's all due to the drilling of deep wells and boreholes. In 1970, the Soviet Union celebrated 100 years since the birth of Lenin. It was then that the Soviet scientific community began to work on one of the largest projects in the history of the country. They started drilling a well, also known as the Kola Super Deep Borehole on the Kola Peninsula, which entered the Guinness Book of Records as the deepest hole ever dug. It's difficult to overestimate the importance of this object to the world of science. Over just 20 years, scientists received tons of useful information about the structure of the Earth, the origin of minerals, and much more. Let's go a little deeper into history. On the Kola Peninsula, the drilling rig was a massive facility in its heyday, allowing it to accommodate 3,000 workers at a time. The most advanced scientists of the country also worked there. It would seem that everything was going along fine, even getting better day by day, when suddenly the huge facility stopped working. The accident gave rise to many guesses and rumors because the drilling business was clearly going well, and no one else in the world could boast of such an unfathomably deep well, one that reached down more than 12 kilometers. Some people assumed that otherworldly forces were to blame for the drilling stopping, and insisted that demons and devils had also appeared on the Kola Peninsula. Well, the lower layers of the Earth are poorly understood, so who knows? Maybe there is some kind of hell down inside of there. This could be the cause of many inexplicable things. For example, several times when workers removed a drill from the borehole, the end turned out to be melted. You might say that at such depths, the temperature is simply too high, but this isn't true. In fact, it was no more than 200 degrees Celsius. The drill could easily withstand such temperatures. So, what melted it? The oddities didn't end there. It turned out that there are quite clearly audible and truly frightening screams and groans in the audio recording from the bowels of the Earth. People who've worked with such materials before have repeatedly admitted that they were on the verge of an inexplicable and terrifying panic when listening to the recordings. Not surprisingly, work stopped after this. Many people did not believe the rumors, but did change their minds after an explosion in 1995. Then many questions were raised, but the most important one was, what in bejesus could have exploded? Even the chief geologist of the facility, David Huberman, shrugged. If this isn't evidence for the existence of hell, then what is? Sounds intimidating, scary, and quite remarkable. And I agree. And how could you not believe it? But in fact, it's all very simple. This whole scary story part was invented by a Finnish journalist as a joke on April Fool's Day. The American press didn't get that it was a joke and printed the entire story in all seriousness. So, a fictional story went out to the masses as pure truth. Although nothing supernatural happened at the Kola borehole, its history is actually quite exciting in itself. Let's start with an explanation for why such projects as the Kola Super Deep borehole were developed at all. It's all quite simple. There are layers under the earth that could not be studied before this due to a lack of technology to access these places. Some discoveries help us to learn more about the formation of life on Earth and more as well. For example, the United States has drilled 86 wells in Antarctica. What for? To explore space. Yes, you heard that right. The thing is that now scientists are actively studying the neutrino, a stable neutral lepton that takes part in weak and gravitational interactions. To explore its properties, it must be separated from other elements. It's impossible to do this on the Earth's surface, so American scientists created filters in these wells where ultra-sensitive devices are located. Due to these filters, such facilities are capable of detecting neutrino remnants that pass through the Earth, filtering out everything else. But back to the Kola well. Why was this place chosen for drilling? The Kola Peninsula is located in a place where formations of the Precambrian period are located, and there are no sedimentary rocks in the upper layers. The borehole was drilled there not for mining, but in order to confirm the structure of the Earth, which scientists knew about only in theory, to get more information about the structure of the nickel-bearing Pecheneg complex, and to find out what some rocks are made of. As we said above, the project was launched into development in 1970, and the drilling process itself began in 1972. The first 7,000 meters were passed without much difficulty, since at this depth there were only homogeneous granites. Having passed these rocks, the drill got into rocks that were not so strong, and voids constantly formed there. The apparatus could not move further because it constantly got stuck, and part of it often became disconnected if workers tried to pull it back up. But that didn't stop the drilling. As a result, in 1979, the Kola Super Deep borehole became a record holder, reaching a depth of 9,500 meters. But this was not yet the limit, and 4 years later, the depth crossed the 12,000 meter mark. To give some perspective, that's deeper than the Mariana Trench. What did scientists discover while drilling? Firstly, deposits of copper-nickel ores were found, and these could be mined. Secondly, at a depth of almost 10,000 meters, geologists stumbled upon layers of high gold concentration. Such a phenomenon is considered anomalous, but anyway, gold cannot be mined from there. However, this discovery made it possible to gain a clear understanding of the process of gold formation. Also, in the process of drilling, scientists discovered 14 types of fossilized microorganisms. Amazingly, the age of some of the layers goes back almost 3 billion years. This suggested that the Earth had existed for much longer than previously believed. At the beginning of the last century, scientists formed an idea of the Earth's composition. However, no one could say exactly how wide each layer was. When the drilling of the Kola well began, we finally got an answer to this question. In the first 4 kilometers, the structure was what was theoretically expected. But then it was anticipated that the drill would reach a layer of solid basalt rocks. However, there was no basalt there. Instead, they found crumbling rocks, due to which it was difficult for the apparatus to move further. Methane deposits were also discovered. This helped us to better understand how oil and gas hydrocarbons are formed. But that wasn't all. A Soviet research team obtained soil samples on an expedition to the moon. In the course of its study, it turned out that its composition and the composition of rocks from layers at a depth of 3,000 kilometers are identical. How could this even be possible? According to one version, the Earth collided with an unknown cosmic body many billions of years ago, and part of the Earth broke off and became a satellite, what we know of now as our lovely moon. And it's possible that the split occurred in the place where the Kola Peninsula is now located. One question remains open. Why was the Kola Superdeep borehole shut down in the end? Obviously, mysticism is not involved here. The explanation is much more prosaic. Scientists conducted all the studies they had planned, and at that stage there really wasn't much more that they needed to figure out. And the situation in the country was, at the time, not conducive to financing new or extended scientific projects. The government simply could not continue to fund such a large-scale undertaking. So a huge number of the workers resigned, and most then left the peninsula. But be that as it may, the Kola Superdeep borehole has made a huge contribution to the development of geology and science in general. Despite many difficulties, scientists have learned much more about the structure of the Earth, the properties of minerals, and the age of our planet. Even now, after almost 20 years, the Kola well surprises with its scope, and I, for one, simply refuse to believe that research will no longer be carried out there. The chief geologist of the project at the time, David Huberman, once said, "We have the deepest hole in the world, so we must use it." Who knows, maybe the day will come when the Kola Superdeep borehole will start working again. Time will tell. Right now, we are rapidly rushing into the future, and who knows, maybe in 10 years, the surface of the planets and their satellites will become as commonplace as reality shows on Earth. Oh, if only the number of Hubble's likes and subscribers could bring this long-awaited moment closer. But we're able to influence something else, the earliest possible release of a new educational video. Share videos with your friends and don't skimp on moral encouragement. The universe will reward you. And if 15,000 likes are collected under this video, then the speed of the release of the new video will surpass the speed of light. Don't believe me? Check it out.